dignity he had. After returning home, he kept thinking about what his ex-father-in-law had said, and conjured up warm images of Lan and I with her ex-husband. Although Ji-ho was reluctant in his heart, he ultimately chose to let Lan and I go. Let's not meet in the future. Although there are many things I want to say, I'd rather not see you. Back home, Lan and I couldn't figure out why Ji-ho suddenly wanted to break up. That day, Junhee asked Ji-ho to meet him at a restaurant. He accused Ji-ho of having already divorced Lan and I, and told him to stop pestering her shamelessly. A bankrupt penniless man has no right to form a family with Lan and I. Junhee advised Ji-ho to choose to let go like a man. After a heart-to-heart conversation at home with Lan and I, her father learned that his daughter only felt disgust for Junhee in her heart, and that she didn't want to see him at all if it wasn't for the child. After understanding the situation, her father also advised his daughter to sever ties with Junhee as soon as possible. Otherwise, in the long run, the one who will be hurt is still the child. At her father's persuasion, Lan and I directly asked Junhee to take back the child. In order to sever ties with him, Lan and I directly threw the coat Junhee gave her on his head, and accused Junhee of thinking he was something special just because he had some money. Later, Junhee's father also privately confronted Junhee and made his attitude clear, by saying that he didn't want his daughter to spend her life with a criminal. Tom also doesn't need a father like that. In the future, try to come to our house as little as possible. It was thought that Junhee would give up on Lan and I after this. However, he accidentally discovered that his son had received psychiatric treatment. In a fit of anger, Junhee went straight to Lan and I's house and yelled at her, and pushed Lan and I away, who tried to stop him. Not only that night Junhee met up with Ji-ho again, and without saying a word, he punched him hard. Then he questioned Ji-ho about how he had abused Tom before, and how he had allowed a child to become mentally ill at such a young age. Unaware of this, Ji-ho suddenly realized, and the next day he immediately went to find Lan and I, and blamed Lan and I for not telling him about Tom's illness in the first place. Lan and I said that because Tom was not his biological son, and was worried that he would dislike his son, he chose to hide the truth. Ji-ho listened and lovingly embraced Lan and I. However, the relationship between the two was thus eased again. Later, Lan and I found Junhee and scolded him for why he hit someone, and because of Tom's illness, his ex-husband was very angry, and decided to take his son back to live with him. But as a mother, Lan and I naturally would not agree. Since the child was born, Junhee has not fulfilled his responsibilities as a father at all, and has not even called to say hello to his son. Not only that, he has even left all the debts to her. Despite Lan and I's words, Junhee still insists on taking the child. It turns out that her ex-husband wants to use this opportunity to blackmail Lan and I into getting back together with him. Junhee says that he is doing this entirely for the sake of the child. Lan and I's mother of course agrees with this, but Lan and I insisted that she would never agree to remarry Junhee. That day, Ji-ho summoned up the courage to go to Lan and I's house, and begged her mother-in-law to agree to his remarrying Lan and I. But Ji-ho's situation was now very different from before. Lan and I's mother never even looked at him from beginning to end. Lan and I's father also thought that Ji-ho was still immature. What could he, who had nothing, do to support his wife and family? Ji-ho could only leave with his head hung low. Then the father began to seriously advise his daughter. He didn't want his daughter to worry about the next meal. Moreover, the two of them were each bringing up their own children, so the father advised his daughter to focus her energy on her children first, and sever all contact with Ji-ho. Under pressure from her parents and considering her son's future, Lan and I took the initiative to ask Ji-ho out, and asked him to give her some time and not to contact her for the time being. She wants to calm down and think about her future. Later, Lan and I went to meet her ex-husband. She just picked up the cup and slammed it on the table. She told her ex-husband that their relationship was like the water in the cup. It ended the day she poured it out. After that, Lan and I got up and left. She thought the entanglement between the three of them would come to an end. But then, her grandmother met her grandfather on the way home from school. Tom was excited to run across the street to find his grandfather, but instead, he was involved in an accident. The doctor told Tom that he might become a vegetable as a result. This made Lan and I feel like the whole world was collapsing. When her ex-husband learned about it, he angrily accused the two elderly people of not watching their child. Lan and I's parents also felt particularly guilty about this. Ji-ho, who knew nothing about it, wanted to contact Lan and I about it, but after thinking about what Lan and I had said, he gave up. At this time, he happened to run into Lan and I's mother, who was going to the hospital. Ji-ho politely greeted her, but was met with a tirade of abuse, warning him to stay out of his daughter's life, and saying that his daughter would soon remarry Junhee, and that he should not greet him on the street again, as it made her feel inferior to someone eating bread on the street. Ji-ho's pride was trampled on by Lan and I's mother. However, the next day he learned from Lan and I's sister that Tom had been in a car accident, so Ji-ho hurried to the hospital. But Lan and I was in no mood to pay attention to him. At the moment, Lan and I was now hoping that her son would wake up soon, and then she advised Ji-ho to go back and not come again. Lan and I's reaction made Ji-ho feel disheartened. Soon after, Tom finally woke up, and the two of them embraced in relief upon hearing the news. Jiho saw that Lan and I was deliberately distancing herself from him, so he went to the company and applied to the shareholders for an overseas posting. Jiho wanted to completely leave this place that made him sad. Then he went to a roadside stand alone and drank some wine. This is also the place where he and Lan and I had their first date. Jiho, touched by the memories, recalled the bits and pieces of his time with Lan and I. It was also from that time that the two fell completely in love with each other. Thinking about this, Jiho couldn't help but feel a little regret. The next day, he still chose to go to the hospital to see Lan and I. However, when he arrived at the door, he didn't know how to approach her. While Jiho was hesitating and wondering in front of the door, he was just seen by Lan and I's father, who had rushed to visit his grandson. Lan and I's father also wanted to talk to Jiho alone about his daughter's situation, so the two of them went to a pub again. Lan and I's father advised Jiho to be more open-minded this time, because his daughter might want to get back together with her ex-husband for the sake of their child. Jiho felt bad after hearing this, but in his current situation, he simply cannot give his child a future. At this time, Lan and I is at home, being urged by her mother to remarry. Lan and I wants to think about it some more, but her mother scolds her for being so inconsiderate. If she finds a man with no money, Tom's future will definitely not be secure. Now Lan and I is about to turn 40. If she doesn't get married soon, she'll probably never get married. Lan and I feels helpless at her mother's persistence. The next day, Lan and I's aunt encounters Jiho at work at the supermarket. Seeing the once glorious Jiho now reduced to delivering goods at the supermarket, her outspoken aunt said that it was good that Lan and I divorced him early, otherwise she would still be living this miserable life with him. The condolences from everyone only strengthened Jiho's resolve to take up an overseas posting. Meanwhile, Lan and I's family was happily celebrating Tom's discharge from the hospital. Lan and I reluctantly agreed to remarry her ex-husband under the persuasion of her parents. The next day, Junhee took the family to see a large house. Her mother-in-law was overwhelmed with excitement, but Lan and I was the only one who looked glum. She remained glum even when the two of them went to choose wedding dresses, because deep down, Lan and I still didn't want to marry her ex-husband. Later, Junhee gleefully asked Jiho out to show off, and warned him not to bother Lan and I's life again. Junhee said that Lan and I actually didn't really have any real feelings for Jiho. It was only because Jiho had paid off her debt that Lan and I had no choice but to marry him. But things are different now, said Junhee, taking a wad of cash out of her pocket and throwing it on the table, threatening to find Jiho some hostesses to entertain him. Facing Junhee's humiliation, Jiho did not choose to tolerate, but instead told the other party in detail the various loving scenes he had with Lan and I. These sweet interactions are experiences that Junhee has never experienced before. Junhee, who was so angry that she could not speak, angrily smashed the wine glass against the wall. However, the next day Jiho saw Lan and I go with her ex-husband to pick out furniture, and watched as his beloved woman got into his ex-husband's luxury car and left. He never expected that Lan and I would eventually bow to reality. Soon, Jiho received an overseas transfer arranged by the company. Before leaving, he specially bought a gift and visited Tom at the kindergarten, and confessed that it was all his fault for not taking good care of him, hoping that Tom would listen to his mother and grow up healthy, and promised to meet again when he grew up. When she returned home that night, Lan and I saw the toy in Tom's hand, and her son had told her everything Jiho had said, and Lan and I learned that Jiho was preparing to leave, so she went to Jiho's room in the middle of the night, and begged him not to leave. Lan and I frankly admitted that the reason she agreed to remarry her ex-husband was entirely to make up for the harm Tom had suffered over the years, but every day after she woke up, Jiho was still in her mind. Lan and I asked Jiho to give her a little more time. She would figure out how to handle their relationship. The next morning, Lan and I called Junhee over to the house, and announced in front of the whole family that she wanted to cancel the wedding with her ex-husband, and make a decision after she had thought it over. But her mother said that she had already booked the date and the wedding hotel, and even sent out the wedding invitations to relatives and friends. Junhee was completely unable to sit still at this point, and angrily asked Lan and I if she had broken off the engagement because of Jiho. Lan and I no longer hid her feelings at this point, and frankly admitted that Junhee was nothing compared to Jiho. The reason she hesitated was also entirely out of concern for her son. The next day was Jiho's birthday. Lan and I ordered a cake in advance and arrived at his house, but she didn't know that her ex-husband was following behind her. Learning that Lan and I was celebrating Jiho's birthday, in a rage, Junhee punched her hard. Jiho, who had received a punch for no reason, was naturally unhappy, so he got up and directly fought with Junhee. Lan and I, who couldn't bear to watch, went up and gave Jiho a slap, and this slap completely interrupted all the affection they had previously shared. However, Lan and I didn't know that she had seen Junhee pick up the stick on the ground, and had to hit Jiho for fear that Jiho would suffer. But Junhee behind her had seen through it all, and as soon as she recovered, she immediately turned around and confronted Lan and I, who had long since grown disgusted with her ex-husband's violent tendencies, and didn't want to live in fear with him every day in the future. So Lan and I resolutely rejected her ex-husband's request to get back together. Junhee, who was furious, went to Lan and I's house and complained, saying that she could no longer bear it. Lan and I had secretly gone to Jiho's birthday party, and fortunately, Jiho arrived in time to stop her. Otherwise, who knows what kind of shameful things might have happened. Lan and I's mother was also very angry when she heard about it. She scolded